Did you know that there are 476 million people on planet Earth who are Indigenous?
It's a great pleasure for me on our Christmas edition to welcome two great friends of mine from the South Coast who have worked tirelessly for their community. And we're going to review their careers today. We're going to see how they influence young people. And the most exciting thing is we're going to talk about a YouTube channel that the guys are putting together. So Auntie Gwen and Uncle Stan Jarrett from the South Coast of New South Wales, welcome to Inspiring Careers.
Thanks, my friend.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Now, you got her into the big smoke okay this morning? She didn't get involved in any scuffles or anything, hey?
No, she had me up on crack of dawn getting ready to rock and roll. So, mate, we got here a bit early, so I'm happy about that.
Oh,
so.
very good, very good. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Can we start with the welcome to country?
Yes. So my name's Gwen Jarrett, as John just mentioned. We're very good friends of John, and I come from the South Coast. So I live in Gerringong, which is Darwin country, and I belong to the Wadi Wadi people. So today we're meeting on Gadigal country. I like to be exclusive and incorporate and include all clan groups that once lived in this area, all the inner city and the South Coastal people. We're all connected in some way through our bloodline lineage in this country. So today I'd like to give you an official acknowledgement to country. So an acknowledgement to country is someone that isn't specifically from that country as a traditional custodian, but can have affiliation. A person who does a welcome to country must be of traditional custodian apical ancestry bloodline, and that's the difference between a welcome to country and an acknowledgement to country. So if I was in my town this morning, I'd be welcoming you to country. So this morning I am acknowledging you all to this beautiful country in the city on Gadigal country.
Excellent. Okay. Now, I will hit you guys with a little anecdote and say that this is particularly special for me because as a very young man, when I arrived in this wonderful continent, let's just say I was a little bit out of control and I went missing in action in the outback for a couple of years and had a wonderful time working with some great Aboriginal people, galvanizing steel in a factory in Western Australia, which is easily the most dangerous job I've ever had. I then washed dishes up in Cable Beach. And then, God forbid, my kids think I'm terrible in my management of a car, but I drove a road train from Darwin to Sydney.
Oh.
And I turned up unannounced to see my great friend Peter Casey in North Sydney, and he gave me a start as a headhunter. So that's how the whole thing evolved. Nice. Now, we've got lots to get through today. We're going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about the channel. We're going to talk about your influence and involvement. Let's talk first about, tell us about the work that you guys do, and then we'll specifically talk about your career. Talk about some of the work you do with your community.
So, I do lots of spiritual work because myself and Uncle Stan, we're spiritualists. So being Indigenous, I've been fortunate enough to be born with one of our ancient Indigenous gifts. So I'm a healer. I also have gifts where we like to pray for people. We also do lots of stuff in community where we volunteer our time and we're involved with many projects. That portfolio is very extensive. So in community, we do lots of voluntary stuff. We work with the youth. We work with elders. We're on lots of committees. And in our work capacity role, I manage 9 properties. So we live in a small town of Gerringong. We've only got 9 Aboriginal housing properties, social housing, and an office. And my role is to manage those properties along with our real estate. And what we like to do is we like to look after our properties. We hear lots of negative stuff about Aboriginal people in Australia. We live in a unique town of Gerringong, which, we're incorporated into our community. So I've lived there as a child growing up, and we believe as, Aboriginal people, we should have had a fair, we didn't have any fair housing. So when myself and Stan first met, we actually lived in a shed at the back of my mum and dad's house in Gerringong.
Yes.
Because we couldn't get
Did
access.
the big lad impress them, by the way?
Well, he just come with the guitar and he's from the bush, so I'm a saltwater woman. But he's connected saltwater food.
Apparently I could play a bit of footy, mate. So,
He tried to woo me with the guitar, but I wasn't into the guitar.
Now, this is interesting because I will tell our viewers, We always have such a good laugh when we catch up because, sadly, I'm a son of the Celtic nation, so I've got a rather warped sense of humour.
Yeah.
And I always try and wind you up with a couple of questions to get you prodded,
Yeah.
which allows Uncle Stan and myself to have a little bit of a chuckle
We'll have a cackle.
at your expense. But I'll be on my best behaviour today. And the other thing I will say, I have got absolutely no idea in what direction this podcast is going to go, and we are not editing it, okay?
Okay.
This is raw. This is live TV, okay?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell me about your background in terms of the work you do, because I presume it's complementary.
It is complementary with Gwen. We do a lot of work in community and in regards to community development. Like, we're involved in a few different projects ranging from environmental interests to fishing class actions.
Yes.
And Gwen's been the native title delegate for the past 8 years. And that's been a bit of a ride in its own. But some of the other stuff that we're involved in community at the moment is trying to get some funding into our communities. So one of the things that we'll probably talk about a little bit later is around if the channel is successful, as I hope it is, and we hope it will be, we'll be able to sponsor our community philanthropically. So we can create employment opportunities for our young people. So because we live in an isolated area on a crowded coast, services go into the Shoalhaven, services go into Wollongong. We don't have a lot of services, as you know, in the community where we live in Gerringong. And we're not high needs, and it actually puts us behind the 8 ball, because we're not high needs, to be able to attract funds.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance. Are you talking about, that in terms of political profile, because they throw money at the people who make lots of noise, etc.? Yeah.
Yes, my friend.
Well, we'll change that, because I think the channel is going to be incredibly successful, and he should be in marketing. Did you see the way he moved that and brought that discussion forward towards the YouTube channel? So, who wants to tell us about the channel?
So we've been talking about this channel, or I knew spiritually something was going to come our way in a couple of years. So it's not a new thing. It was just that John come our way and, good friend, and offered us an opportunity. And we thought that, this is our timing. It's all about timing for us. So we're very spiritual people. And with this channel, what we want to do is we believe the world has to have some kind of change. The white man's money, wealth, policies on different government levels for all Indigenous people around the world are not meeting the real people and the real needs of us people. So we believe as spiritual people, if we come together on a collective group like we're doing on other projects, like a symposium with the Fishing Rights Symposium, where we're talking to people from all around the world that are experiencing the same issues as us as Indigenous people, we believe if we come together on a spiritual level and we all come together and we join hands and we all pray and heal with energy. So myself and Stan are energy healers. We believe in faith. We believe in energy. We've had profound miracles that you can't let go, just through our hands and our upbringings and what was embedded into us as Aboriginal people. So we know this is the right time. We're spiritual, and we're going to be having a spiritual awakening on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to create that.
We want to add everyone around the world of Indigenous culture. We want to embrace them. We want to learn their practices. We want to share our culture. And with this channel, hopefully, we want to be able to contribute some money to their communities and to inspire them and uplift their profile of their countries, to be proud of who they are, because we have to change the way we're living, because the white man's medicine's not going to save us. Wealth ain't going to save us. All of these impacts and, environmental desecration on the planet, the oceans and the lands, we have to rise and shine and to come together as people. It's a new way of moving forward on a global level.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we see things as, there's only one Earth. There's only one life that you have to make a difference and to try and create that space for healing. And, colonisation has touched so many nations around the world. You mentioned the number of Indigenous people around the world. Colonisation has affected them negatively, every one of them.
Yes.
And, they'll tell you about the high rates of incarceration, the high rates of alcohol and drug abuse in Indigenous communities all around the world. And we've been talking to people, through our connections and through our connections in our symposiums that we attend, and, people from different walks of life tell us the same thing. We had people from Taiwan talking about their flying fish ceremony that they wait for every year. They wait all year. They're not allowed to eat the flying fish. They have to wait for this special ceremony. And when they go out, they can't catch them because the trawlers and the motherships are like 3 miles offshore, and they're just creating these, voids of these fish now, where these people could go out, have their ceremony, and create this. Those guys, they carve canoes for months just for that time to go out and chase those flying fish. And, it's a very sad thing, because it's a disconnection from culture.
Yes.
Through progress, I guess. And
now, what's the name of the channel?
The name of the channel that we've looked at and what we talked about was Our Indigenous World.
Yes.
So one of the things Gwen didn't touch on, but I will, we've talked about Indigenous tourism.
Yes.
And we want to go around and film different tour groups up and down the coast, over WA, up north. I go up and see our mob up in North Queensland, our mob over in WA.
So can I just, you are a Queenslander, aren't you?
I am a Queenslander.
Does that mean that, like me, you support Queensland as state of origin?
I do. I captained South East Queensland when I was a young bloke.
Yes.
And the great Sam
So
Baker.
he must have been a good catch then a couple of years ago. Athlete, good-looking punter, well-educated, and he plays a guitar as well. Hey? Yeah.
Well, I had no choice. My father said because that was at the time that in the 1990s when New South Wales kept winning the series.
Sorry, mate.
And when he asked Dad, could you marry me? My father said, if New South Wales wins a series, you can
have it.
So
I was based on the state of origin.
Toss of a coin, yeah. That's a great Australian tradition. In fact, did they not say Kerry Packer's dad won 10 quid on a horse? And that's how he built his empire. Talk to me about some, because, and I will mention my role in this in a second, but talk to me about some of the arts and crafts and what I call the celebrations. What are we going to have on the show that we can look forward to that we want to celebrate, if you like, yeah?
So what we want to do is there's going to be some components to the channel. And one of them is a celebration. So when we talk about celebrations in Australia for Aboriginal people, we have the theme called National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Week. That's celebrated all around Australia during certain times, July, during September. So we all come together in all different parts of Australia and they all showcase their culture. So they come together for ceremony, they have corroboree, they have healing, they have dances. They have every types of culture where Aboriginal people can feel proud of themselves, not be scared and have to hide like we did when we grew up because of worrying about, you couldn't walk into shops. The era that my parents come from, you couldn't walk into a shop. You couldn't sit in a picture theatre. You were segregated. You couldn't go in after work and have a cold beer. Those sort of standards still happen today in different parts of the country through dry communities. But when we talk about celebrations, we want to highlight all the good things that are happening in Australia for our people.
And not just for
that's only one thing. We have Sorry Day. We have all these different iconics. We have Yarbin where we bring all people together. But what we want to do is bring all Indigenous people together as well as the Aboriginal people. And we want to do this next year on World Peace Day.
Oh, that's excellent. Yep. Yeah. And I think going back to that statistic earlier about 476 million people. I mean, that's across 90 different countries. So where this gets exciting, having recently met Indigenous people from the United States and Hawaii, etc., when I went to that YouTube conference, we can connect everybody into that. I will also say very quickly that if you look at it in Australian terms, my role will be purely voluntary, giving the guys advice on strategy, business advice. It'll be like a non-executive director for a non-profit. And the most exciting thing is that we've got a couple of university kids like young Yui, etc., who I get to hang out with and exchange ideas. Yui's a rapper. He's an artist and he's a musician. The kid's going to be huge. But the point is, when you see some of the young kids going to uni and that, they're doing all the production, all the editing, etc. Tyrone will help the boys with all the strategy. But it's exciting to see all the young kids, and then they connect with some of the different kids around the world. Now, let me do this, right? We are now running a podcast, which was initially tech, but now the brief is we want to interview anybody that we admire, who we find interesting, anywhere in the world who can give people a career journey and advice on their careers. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the Aboriginal people. And I'm not intending any offence. It's my ignorance, but it's also my curiosity. And hopefully people out there will think, geez, I always wanted to know that. So let me ask you this, and either of you can answer either question. How many Aboriginal people are there in Australia?
I think the last census there was
14,000.
14,000 or 18,000, I think.
Okay, so that's a fair bit. Now,
Australia-wide,
how many different tribes have you got?
Oh, well, at the last count, I think there were over 370 tribes.
Okay.
And I think there were around, I think, what was the language groups?
So when you talk
there
about
was like
Aboriginal people, we get this information from researchers and the census. So when you're born, you vote, people vote. A lot of people in this country of Aboriginal people and people in my family and people older than us, they have never voted. So those people are not counted in the census. So when they say 914,000,
right.
then 4.3% is made up of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
About
So we're
5%.
Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander people come under the same census as us. So they say now there's around, with the population of the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people that make up our population, we're saying around 914,000. But realistically, we know, and many people know, there's a lot of people that never identify. So their information's not recorded.
Okay.
And it's the same
That's
with...
right. I'll say approximates.
But and once again, I'm going to excuse my ignorance. So, but the point is, we've got a country, say roughly 1 million people. You've got 300 or 400 different tribes, which means you've got 300 or 400 different languages. Let me ask you a straight question. Do they mix well together?
A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Because they have independencies on the tribes surrounding.
Yeah.
So they're connected through marriage, through land use, migrations of animals as well, and their laws. So LORE, so Aboriginal customary law, that they are connected through. Different folks have different customs, I guess, or different cultural practices.
Yeah.
A lot of the intent is the similar, or the principles behind it are similar, but they have different practices and different belief systems and different dreamtime, I guess, as the next tribe. So we could be here in Sydney where we have like Parramatta is the Parramatta people.
Yes.
And you've got the Gadigal here. And they'd speak different languages, but they'd be multilingual enough.
So I'm loving this because I'm learning, and hopefully everybody around the world is. So let me ask you this then. Once again, no offence intended. Dodgy Paddy, Mad Paddy asking a question. What happens when an Aboriginal person passes away?
So Aboriginal people, we believe spiritually. So the main word we use across the whole of Australia is sorry business.
Sorry business.
So whenever any Aboriginal person passes away, especially of high significance, a really respected elder, we'll acknowledge them by lowering Aboriginal flags. You may see them on government buildings, local clubs. So we let the people know, especially if you're from that community, and they lower the flag, the Aboriginal flags, all the flags. That's a sign of respect to give acknowledgement to our elders.
Yeah.
But when we talk about passing over, when this channel, what me and Stan talk about is about our own life experiences.
Yes.
What we've experienced in life growing up as Aboriginal people and spiritualism. So we know, like, because before my father passed over, he was at my house, he collapsed and he went to hospital, and he told me his grandfather come to him and told him, it's not your time yet to leave. So we have a vision, and I've been told by more than one elder, that when they're ready to go, they see people come to get them. And my career, like with my dad, he told me that, and unfortunately 3 weeks later he passed away. Plus we have other signs. We have birds, significant birds, that give us an indication someone is passing over. We also have a sign when we have someone passing over, very prominent for the South Coast people, it's called a mopoke bird. It's like an owl. So it makes a noise. And when that last breath is taken, that will stop. So witnessing my nan, who was spiritual, who I've been given her gifts at the hospital, laying in the bed, and she was just reaching into fresh air. I knew that people were standing there to take them over.
Coming.
So it's with everybody, not just Indigenous people. It's how you adapt your religion, your values growing up to interpretate death. So we believe that our old people come to take us, they wait for us, then they take us into the dream time. What we call is a dream time. It's another procession. So we're here, our body leaves our soul leaves our spirit. We can see what's going on. We go to another realm. So the dream time is us, I suppose, is like going straight to heaven. Before we reach heaven, we come from a culture. We have a procession. Then you go into heaven.
And once again, excuse my ignorance, are you in that world forever?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we believe in the same as everybody else.
Yeah. Some believe in reincarnation. Some clans I know that believe in their Dreamtime stories that they came from a prominent or a sacred waterhole, so their spirit will go back there until they're reborn again.
Reincarnation.
So it's in reincarnation, and different beliefs, for different folks. So different strokes, different folk. But that's what we believe, that we're we go to that at that place of our elders and our dream times, and then we go into the dream.
And another question for you, and I'm sorry to throw all these questions out, but I think that, as I said, people around the world will enjoy this.
Yeah.
I see sometimes that they don't mention people, or they're not allowed to see photographs. What's the element there? What's the symbolism of that you don't either mention deceased people, or you're not allowed to see a photograph of them?
Yeah.
So when we talked about different tribal groups all around Australia, we all have different and sometimes the same similar practices.
Yeah.
So that there is not for the South Coast people. When someone passes, we like to put a picture up that their belief system comes from the Northern Territory.
Okay.
So
And
just through research, you can't speak that person's name. It's a sign of disrespect.
And it's only...
And I can't talk on that country because I'm not from there.
Okay.
But that's what we know. So there are people, and that's what we're saying.
And that's real.
With all Aboriginal people, we all have the similar aspirations, the similar cultural beliefs, like all Indigenous people around the world. But that's a different, when they pass over.
Yeah.
For us, it's not like that.
Okay.
And it's not for us to like or dislike. It's for us to respect their way.
Yes.
Because we expect them to respect our way. So, and, I don't know. A lot of people, I guess, out there in the world that come to Australia, or even people still living in Australia, haven't got that concept about country by country by country, and they get confused.
They have a sort of a one-size-fits-all, yeah.
And they have this perception that, we're all the same, we all speak the same language, we all think, but we're very diverse in our communities, and it varies on the South Coast. Like the South Coast is more dependent on fishing because they live on the water.
Yes.
This is their environmental influences. That's the way they live, similar to people that are inland. So they'd be more freshwater, more animal orientated, around hunting and gathering and those sort of things. So I think the environmental influences will actually dictate.
I'm going to ask you about the land, funny enough. Yeah. So you've got your beautiful hat there. You've got your colours on it. So let me ask you another question. What is the symbolism of the three colours on the Aboriginal flag?
Sure.
So we can share the
black
answer,
is.
right?
Yep.
So when we talk about black represents the people because we're all of dark skin. So black, that's what the colour black is on the flag. Red represents, for me, bloodshed, blood. Also, it represents ochre and ceremony.
Yep.
It's a very significant colour for dreaming. And yellow.
And yellow is the sun. The giver
which is
of
very
life.
spiritual. It's the giver of life, and it's a very spiritual connection to Aboriginal people.
And that flag, Harold Thomas was the guy that invented the Aboriginal flag. He designed the Aboriginal flag. And they first flew it in Adelaide, and I remember the date. It was the 12th of June in 1971.
See, this is good because apparently him and I need to team up in a Trivial Pursuit competition because he's as bad as me when it comes to being, he's the Aboriginal version of Rain. My kids call me Rain Man. He with his football and his boxing and all that. We have a great time hanging out together.
Mate, do you like the tipping point? Do you like tipping point?
Yeah.
Well, you'll be a friend of mine then.
So let me ask you this then, and I'm going to throw a couple of questions around again.
Yeah.
Why is the connection to the land so important to you guys?
Well, we, as Aboriginal people, you might hear people saying Mother Earth and Father Sky. We believe we come from the earth, which is our mother. You're born from the earth, you die, you're bloodshed from the earth, born into earth. So it's very sacred to Aboriginal people. So especially for the South Coast people. So my role, I'm very fortunate when we're talking about land specific that, we went up 8 years ago. We were offered to put in a native title rights claim. We had about 800 people in the group. They represented 13 tribes from the south of Botany Airport over to Bundeena Mountains and down to the Victorian border. So we all come together. And what we're fighting for, so people don't realise, on the east coast, eastern seaboard of Australia, we don't have our cultural gathering rights like they do in WA and all parts of around Australia. They've been given their native title rights back. So we're sitting at the table with government, with federal, with all of these politicians, and we've got our own team that is an S Corp. So they are a team of lawyers and they work with us delegates, and every issue that's dealing with lands. So we're talking about pre-existence of lands. So before Australia was built and we had buildings, we're talking about the preoccupation of those lands. So you might own a farm, you might want to put a road in, but that road, there might be there might have been a birthing ground there. So then what we do is, what's so significant, what they're doing now with government policies under Aboriginal culture and heritage, they go on the country and we survey the land. So that's why it's so important for anyone
look for occupation
is to make sure you scan the land, you have the rightful traditional owners. They're specialised in this field as sites workers and they survey. And if they come across any old burials or bones or, significance of artefacts, there's special ways that they do it, and they call it a repatriation, where they have a team come in with the local Indigenous people and they remove those bones. Most of those bones get brought to Sydney to the museum because we haven't got keeping places. So we're trying to work with other communities. They want to build a new cultural centre at Ulladulla. So when we discover these bones, we can put them in our own showcase, and they're there with our people.
And they're home, on country.
I work a lot with lands, culture and heritage. Any new developments go up in my area, I get contacted to send the rightful people that are connected to that country on site. I'm very blessed. I've worked on big projects, building the highway. Fortunately, I go on country. I have a gift where I can sense bodies, pull up the team. I feel there's a body here. Team stops, bring down the farm owner. Yes, I buried my husband there how many years ago? So I'm not just talking about caring land for Aboriginal people. It's not fair that these farm owners that have lived on these lands and they've got generational of farming and heritage just like us, they're burying people on their land. So the way we did a big project with the Fulton Highway where we live in our area, Berry to Nowra project, that was one of the properties which that lady didn't have to then be taken off her land. So I fought for her strongly, and I said she has to remain here because, this is her country.
Yeah.
So that's why the road's diverted when you go through Gerringong to Bomaderry. I worked with many teams. I brought all the tribes together at the Gerringong Town Hall. I played a big role on a voluntary level, myself and Stan.
I think
that's the way the highway road got built based on a farm owner there that had a husband buried there.
Yeah, but I think that
that's just one of the things we talk about.
And I think that's what you hinted about before was that spiritual connection. And I think, that spiritual connection overrides a lot of things for us in Aboriginal communities because the land and the waters and the seas, they provided for us. So, and in traditional times, we were very grateful for Mother Earth to provide food for us and our tribes and sustain our people. And we had to look after Mother Earth to be able to sustain our people and live, thrive and survive as a tribe. And if we didn't look after the land, then we would not exist. So it's a symbiotic relationship with Aboriginal people and the land and the waterways and the rivers and the streams, and the catchment areas and all of those places where were very sacred for Aboriginal people. And that's why, we're so passionate about protecting the environment and protecting our country.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about your YouTube channel, guys, just thinking aloud, is it gives you an opportunity to educate people from all over the world about why it's important to you, why you have to look after it, etc. I'm going to push my luck a little bit and ask you a couple of sort of quasi-political questions.
Yep.
What year did you guys get the vote?
60.
Well, we weren't born then, so we're not going to tell you our age. But myself and Stan weren't born then, so we had a referendum in this country for people like myself that were born of Indigenous to be given a birth certificate. So they took it to the country.
To be counted in the census.
And to be counted in this country, as a citizen, because we were known under the Act as fauna and flora, animals and plants. So in 1967, the referendum came out for Aboriginal people in this country.
So we were actually born.
We were allowed to vote.
Non-citizens.
And we can get a birth certificate.
So before that, they had an election and without being nasty, all the white people turned up and did a vote, but you guys didn't vote anywhere in Australia.
No.
And that was, okay, so.
Not until 1960.
Okay, so.
After 1960.
So when you talk about the census, so people that were born before myself, people that were born before 1967, they didn't have to vote. So some of those are cousins and mob. They still don't vote today and they're in their 70s. So when we talk about stats with the census for Aboriginal people, they're wrong because we know heaps of people that are not recorded to vote and that's where they get the stats from.
Yep.
Okay. Tell me about the stolen generation.
Yeah.
I might let Stan have a talk about this.
Yeah.
Because Stan was part of the stolen generation.
Well,
similar.
I wasn't stolen. I was actually placed in kinship care. And being placed in kinship care, it's something you're with family, with kin. So in kinship care, you're with family, but I didn't have my brothers and sisters living with me at the time, so I still had that separation anxiety, I guess, or trauma of separation for many, many years. I didn't know I had a little brother or sister, but before they came and visited us.
Oh, sorry, how old were you then? Were you 5 years old or 25 years old? When did you find this out?
I think it was like 8 or 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah. And, but, mate, I had a pretty good upbringing. Mate lived in a town, there was very little racism, a little town called Jarringa, and, if you had a beef with someone, you took it outside and you came back in and you had
Lionel
a cup
Rose
of tea.
boxing ring, yeah.
It wasn't, and there was nothing said about it, and I remember, being a young bloke, getting dobbed on and stuff like that when we got up to mischief in Jarringa, and we all got to hide. No, every one of us, it wasn't nobody missed out, put it that way. But, there were nearly 36,000 people stolen in Australia through an era that I call the Great Disconnect. So it was from settlement. Aboriginal people started to, be separated from their culture, forced into slavery, forced into, work, and forced onto missions and reserves. Missions were run by the missionaries at the time, and reserves were government run. So there was a bit of a difference with missions and reserves. There were people stolen, and, there was about, like I said, there was about 35,000, 36,000 people actually stolen.
Well, the only thing I would say there, I want to say two things. Number one is going to be an anecdote. Number two, in fact, let's start with number two. 36,000 people, but the records were shit at that stage, so it could have been 50,000, it could have been 60,000. And then I will run a parallel, funny enough, which not a lot of people know, and I tend to keep to myself, but my mum was born in the northwest of Ireland in Donegal in a little fishing village called Greencastle. And her mum was a 16-year-old girl who was a Catholic, and the priest took Mary away from her. And my mum was adopted by people called Eddie and Henrietta Maguire, and she grew up in the Bogside in Derry. Right. Mary always said that she never went looking for people because those people were so good to her. But I always said to her, Jesus, anything could have happened. You could have gone to Australia, you could have gone to America, you could have gotten abused. But isn't it funny just the parallels across the world?
Yeah,
with all these different things that happened to people because of these religious sects and impositions that people put on people,
Yeah, there wasn't many countries that colonisation didn't affect, my friend. So I can welcome to my world, big fella. So, it's that's what it's sort of all about, and it's about healing past that, I guess. We live in modern times nowadays, and we need to have those connections, to create that healing space. And
okay, so therefore I'm going to go off the tangent again, and I'm going to ask you this. I mean, I'm going to tie all this together because we'll run for another 30 minutes or whatever. I'm having a great time. You go ahead, sorry, yeah.
I just wanted to finish what Stan was going to say. So when we talk about stolen generation, when families, so we're still in an era today, but it's modern stolen generation. So what we call it is transgenerational trauma. So when I read some kids up, live with me, they got kids now, they're in the system. So this fear and horrible stigma, and the country in Australia is still trying to work it out. So stolen generation hasn't stopped. We just got a modern stolen generation. So about 2 years ago, I had to do, I found some family kids, and I had to do a welcome to country to Child and Family Services, and they talked about a topic like this. And I said, well, I'm still trying to find my nephew and kids and whatever. So with that, they found them. I found them, and I got a phone call. We had 48 hours to bring them from Tamworth over to where I live. 48 hours notice. It's a 9-hour drive to leave Gerringong to travel out there. So we had to put them in a carriage service. They turned up. They were shaken. It was horrible. We were so traumatised, but we just wanted to get them and cuddle them. So me and Stan are very heavily involved on a voluntary level. We're not employed by DCJ. We help these families. We visit them. We work behind the scenes, and we place them in care with good families that we believe can look after them. Because when you talk about stolen generation in this country, we're very passionate about helping people that were stolen, that don't know their identity. Some of these people are so traumatized, especially if they're of fair skin,
really struggling.
Blonde hair and
Still.
blue eyes, but their parents might be both dark skin and they come from a real traditional upbringing, placed in mainstream care. A lot of our kids are placed in motels for over 12 months. In our area, there was over $350,000 spent on motels. A lot of our kids are going to non-Aboriginal people. They're beautiful people, but a lot of them don't know about the culture. So what we do is, personally, we'll go and deliver cultural training, cultural awareness, embrace these kids. And it's unfortunate, they're segregated, they're discriminated.
We volunteer our time for that, eh?
Stolen generation, for me, is still around. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And I think Stanley has a unique case. You know, he was the third child born out of 9 or 8 children. He was given to his grandma, who is alive today, 107.
She's 107, yeah.
So he grew up with his grandfather who spoke language and did traditional smoking. I remember when I met them, he was smoking a car out. There was a deceased body in the car. So his grandma's 107 and she was from the stolen generation. So when you look into Stan's family lineage, they've got a documentary how she walked out of Taroom to Woorabinda at the age of 5 years old. So when we talk about stolen generation, it's a really big topic.
Yeah.
We got both sides. You see, Mum's family and Dad's family, they were all taken at one stage and, you know, placed in care. I remember Mum, she was sent to Palm Island, so from a little place called Woorabinda in central Queensland, where we grew up. And, she was sent up there for 3 months, and grandfather, because he had a license and he had his ticket to be able to leave the community without the permission of the manager. So they're called dog tags, they used to call them. So
and they've still got them.
He had permission to leave the community. So he drove to Palm Island, picked me Mum up, brought her back home. So that's how Mum sort of got back to central Queensland. But then after that, she was then sent as a domestic to Kempsey, which is in New South Wales.
I know Kempsey, yeah.
It's a long way from
yes.
central Queensland. As a domestic to work for one of the doctors' families there. I just forget their name. But they treated Mum really, really well. Mum had a great life with them. And they respected her like their own daughter. And that's where she ended up meeting Dad. So Dad's from mid-north coast, Nambucca.
Yes.
Goombanga and Dungutty as well. So
you go ahead, sorry.
With my dad. So all different parts of Australia is different because New South Wales, Botany Bay, we got invaded first. So we had the language stopped, you know, and all that kind of stuff. That's why we're last on the map to get these native title rights. But back in the day, people my age, you know, big black cars would pull up, you'd be playing. They used to have to hide in the grass. So when they talk about stolen generation, it was those kids that were actually stolen. Where there's families like Stan that were actually given to another family for whatever reason.
Placed, yeah.
So they're displaced. And it was like my dad when he was about 12 to 14, the story I hear, he couldn't read and write. I come from a whaling and fishing family. So he was on a train and he got sent to Walgett from down there where I come from. So he stayed out there for 6 months, same clothes, lived with family to hide him. My nan only had 2 children, but she reared a lot of other children and non-Indigenous children. So my dad was out there for 6 months and then he come back. So they shifted the kids around and I spoke to my cousin this morning and I said, you know, when you look at it, when you moved back down the coast and where we camped right on the cemetery, I said, there was like a hiding spot. Like, so we had to move around, some families, not all of them, especially with the picking seasons for a livelihood, but they're actually hiding from the government.
Yes.
The kids. So we're very fortunate. A lot of families stayed together, a lot of parents. And only last month, myself and Stan were contacted by Link Up. We had to connect a man a bit older than me, his mum. He wanted to meet his mum. And we had the honour of doing a spiritual blessing. and given him some reassurance and spiritual enlightenment for him to meet with his mum. And it was a personal note for us because someone got closure.
Yeah, we
Isn't
did,
that correct?
And
did cleansing
if you can help one person,
as well.
you can help someone else, because these people lose their connection to culture sometimes.
I've got a couple of things to say on that. Number one, and I'm going to go back to your channel because I will continue to, as we all do, give it a plug. So wouldn't it be great to be able to talk to some of these different people around the world and get them to tell us their stories about perhaps they may be similar, they may be different, etc. So that's very exciting. Now, let me ask you this question. You guys are elders, okay?
Yeah.
So my question is there still a good connection, and is there still as much respect for elders from your younger generation as there would have been 30 or 40 years ago?
Yeah. Look, with my background in my career, over many years, I've seen the decline in the respect for elders and in my area, in my fields. But now, with the newer generations, younger generations coming through, that's starting to become more stronger.
Is that because they're beginning to sort of feel prouder?
I think
to
so.
be Indigenous. And that's a question I was going to ask you. I didn't let on, but it was. So let me ask you then. Are you proud to be Aboriginal?
I'm the proudest Aboriginal person on the planet.
So,
why is that?
I love me, and I love the colour of my skin. And, you know, I'm very grateful that I grew up with the culture, and I just embrace my culture, and I'm very special. I'm a unique person that's been blessed with gifts and which we can share with others for healing. And we're changing people's lives. We've saved people's lives through healing. And I'm also a psychic, so I get to share, you know, interest with other people. That's not my passion. But both of our belief system together stands Catholicism, spiritualism. So with both our knowledges, we believe that, you know, we're pretty fortunate that we've had an education. We've, you know, we're very fortunate that we're still in the arena at our age, and we've got the energy and we've got the drive in us to be passionate enough to get on projects to move forward. So when young people see the change and see people like us as elders, because we've been involved with lots of programs and stuff, like taking football teams to state knockouts, doing big projects with community. So people were well known, and people build that respect. It's how you give respect. So I think when it comes to eldership, yes, there is a decline on respect, but I feel when they see people like us, there's Auntie Gwen and Uncle Stan. We want to give those people
feel it. We feel that respect. You know?
Yes,
the same blessing we
and
have.
That's why I think
this is part of our channel, is to empower people to embrace their culture, regardless what religion or what values you have. And because we've got to move in this world, as I said, and we want people to be up there like us, cultural practitioners, delivering what they've been blessed with and sharing it with the rest of the world. So we just want to do, I think, what the rest of the people want to do. And a lot of young people are into spiritualism. You never heard the word spiritualism before. Now when you look at, you know, media, social media and all the religious stuff, the word spiritualism is everywhere. So part of us being elders with respect, because of the, you know, we're in a new era with drugs that influence people, which we understand it's not them. It's the drug or whatever influence or behaviour that comes to people that gives them that tongue to be disrespectful. Some are from stolen gen, some are adopted. Some want to connect with families, they're angry, so they show disrespect.
I think, Gwen, what you're trying to touch on is other influences drive disrespect.
Drive disrespect.
Not Aboriginal culture.
The only thing I would say there, and this is more, I mean, hey, obviously I grew up the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I loved it, by the way, but sadly a lot of people were killed, etc. But we have to give the young people the strength to actually feel confident about themselves to say no to all these clowns that are trying to basically exploit them. But I'll ask you a couple of corporate questions, and I think that would nearly do us for the day. It's been the most enjoyable discussion. Let's talk about your careers, and I'll let Stan go back in a second. But difficult. What's the most difficult? Let's bring it back to the audience and careers, etc. Most difficult time in your career, and how did you cope?
So my career, if I start from when I left high school, I had an issue with teachings at school. In my report, I've got it, a Year 10 report, because what I grew up with at home being Aboriginal and what we're learning from textbooks, and it wasn't nice, as soon as they mentioned Aboriginal, for us used to cringe because everyone, it was different. So I grew up and I left school when I was 15. The coffee shop that we made at the Bakers was my first shop. I had the opportunity to work in there as a little takeaway, selling food and coffee. Later on in life, my interest was in health. So my career went to become a nurse's aide. Then I went to work in Sydney as a lab technician. So my bosses were Professor McDonald and Professor Charlesworth, which may be still around in the renal capacity with health. So I was a lab technician that used to be part of that team. When you'd have a blood test done, we'd do the results, and it specifically was for kidney and renal disease, and we tested monkeys. My career then took me on to further to do a degree in Aboriginal Health Sciences at Cumberland College in the early 1989, and then I worked in the field with Aboriginal health with community health in Nowra since 1989 to 2007. So in that time, is 20 plus years, my role was to be an Aboriginal health promotion officer. I used to go into communities, do programs of prevention, teaching our mob how to eat healthy, better lifestyles. And I was on projects, on regional projects, where I was part of a team that implemented the otitis media program, which is based on screening the kids at the school. We picked a selection of kids, Koori kids from our area. I'd go out with the audiometrist and all the big services involved, psychologists and stuff. So we actually made that a state project. So just from my little program that I did, it became an initiative around New South Wales. Now that's gone on to get over 200 state audiometrists, otitis media workers that work in communities, because lots of our kids that, swam in these dirty rivers and dams or contamination affected their hearing loss. And we changed the way for them for learning, like we made sure we made it culturally safe. We developed the BBC program, Breathe, Blow, Cough. So when the kids come in, they do that in the morning, a little rap, it clears their airways, bringing speakers closer to the classroom instead of segregating Aboriginal kids sitting there and they're not even meeting the mark of their, schoolwork. So I did a lot of stuff like that. I was involved as a regional coordinator from Wollongong to Helensburgh, and that was a hepatitis B program, overcrowding in housing. So a lot of our people, they catch communicable diseases just through not washing hands, sharing food, or overcrowding. Overcrowding can lead to renal disease, also hepatitis. So the government introduced the hepatitis B program, which my role was to go and get as many children that were registered birth, preschools, schools, to get all their families, immunised against hepatitis B. So I suppose my role was setting the platform for big services that are established today, and they were for communicable diseases to prevent the big chronic health services like renal dialysis, stuff like that. Throughout my career, I did go to burnout. In the end, I worked with homeless people, 24 hours, prostitution, drug and alcohol, removed kids, and that led me to burnout, and I was also discriminated against. So my life for 7 years was knocked over, and I had the highest degree of mental health, post-traumatic stress disorder. And Stan's career at the time, he was a state manager of Attorney General, and he had to leave work to look after me. Through my journey, the only thing that really saved me was spiritualism. So I was offered to do a parapsychology course. I was asked, you're very spiritual, would you like to come along and do this training? So I did that for 12 months, and I learned about all other westernized cultures. We all have the same beliefs, the same practices spiritually. So that was part of my healing. And that's how I learned to then learn about other people's cultures. They do Reiki, and I was also chosen with my group to be anointed into the spirit world. So my healing through spiritualism healed me. So I am a person, I'm a survivor of discrimination, trauma, burnout. So what we want to do is when we encourage younger people today and we talk to corporate people about employment with Aboriginal people, you must talk about self-care. You must talk about cultural safety. You must talk about all of these Aboriginal issues, like it's when someone dies. You only get 3 days really for bereavement. Well, we go to funerals nearly every week, every month. And just to go to one funeral might take us 10 days. But government policy, it used to only be you get 3 days off. You only get paid for 3 days. So a lot of my money and energy goes to funerals. People say, why? They get good money. They both work. But what they don't realise is I go to a funeral 5 times more. I help families.
And
We help our families. Takes a village to rear a family. We've done that. And that's how we work. And we try to help people.
Yeah. But I think that
Now tell us about your career. You're a bit. He's a bit of a sort of a strong, silent type, very talented, but he lets you and I do all the talking. Give everybody a rundown on your career.
It's true. I like to listen to people. I think it's a good thing. But look, mate, I started. My background's justice. So I've always worked in justice, and I started working in Warrabinda in Central Queensland. I was actually a community policeman. So the community up there used to call us trackers, but we did not prefer that name. But that's what they called us. But we were. I got my first job as a constable, as a community police officer with my one uncle and my 2 grandfathers. So Uncle Pancho and Uncle Walu, they were police. They Freemans. They're related to Kathy Freeman. So
very good, yeah.
Kathy is my auntie on my mum's side. And we worked there for a couple of years, and then I brought myself down to the South Coast. I played a bit of footy down here, and then I started working in the justice system down here. So I think I was like 24 or 25, something like that. 24, 23. I started working at the Aboriginal Legal Service. So I worked with them. I think it was for about 3 or 4 years.
Young offenders.
Yeah, I work with young offenders and steering young fellas away from the criminal justice system. And yeah, some of the guys I worked with then, I worked with a few years ago, so I mustn't have done a very good job. So, but they got involved back in again with the criminal justice system. So I tell people I went full circle. So I went from ALS to work with juvenile justice for a little bit. Then I went into the local courts, worked for local courts for about 14 years. And then I went to corrections after they had a little bit of a break. That's when Gwen went through her burnout to look after Gwen. And then I went into corrective services for about 15 years. I worked in the jail, so down in Nowra. And after that, and then I went to parole, so probation and parole. So I tell people I went full circle. So, and then I got out last year. So during my time at local court, we implemented a fair few things. One of the guys, the chamber magistrates, or they call them registrars now, but they were chamber magistrates. He said to me one day, "Why don't Aboriginal people come in and use the service? I provide free legal advice. I help them with their forms. I'll help them do this and help them do that." And I said to him, "Mate, the courthouses are like a hospital." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you don't go to hospital if you're not sick, do you?" He said, "Well, people won't come to court if they're not in trouble, mate. I'm telling you right now." Right now. And he goes, I said, "We need to get out." So we organised ourselves and we did an outreach service. We went to a little community in Geringa down on the south coast. We went out there first, and Bomaderry, which is actually the home of the Stolen Generations, the Bomaderry homes in Nowra on the south coast. And now out of the 122 or 120 courts, I think there was about 60 or 74, something like that, doing outreach services all around New South Wales for not just for Aboriginal communities, but they go out and they do wills and estates and all of those types of things that a registry provides in communities. So that's one of the things. I put the flags on all the courthouses in New South Wales. One of the bigger ones that I worked on was circle courts, so circle sentencing. I was one of the lead project officers for circle sentencing in New South Wales, which was a great, really great initiative because it involved Aboriginal elders and Aboriginal community members, significant others, in the sentencing processes of Aboriginal people, which made the sentences more real and more relevant to their circumstance.
Yes.
And, that within its first 6 months of operation, it actually dropped the crime rate in that community by 16%. Now, that's unheard of in any justice initiative in New South Wales. That's unheard of. And it's all fact. Anybody can go and look it up and see how well Circle's doing. Before it finished, before the first trial, which was a 2-year trial, it went to 6 other sites. Now it's in 8 sites. And as a spin-off from that, we have actually children's court circles now. They're mooting drug court circles. And they've also got a bails program that's happening now with the district court right now in New South Wales. And also, one of the things that we did before I left corrections was I worked on a parole transition program. So coming from custody back into community for men.
Yes.
So that's called staying on track. Now, staying on track within its first 6 months of its operation, judging by the statistics that are coming out of the evidence that it's producing, is that 1 in 5 Aboriginal people used to return to custody within that 12 months at the Nowra office. It's gone from that to 1 in 20.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Excellent.
That's huge.
Yeah.
In any justice interventions. Because a lot of people in the system, are working really hard to try and lower the rates of people in custody, lower the rates of Aboriginal people being involved in the criminal justice system, and, who burn out sometimes, who, work really hard to try and prevent it because they have the same passion as we do for our communities. We don't want to see our people being locked up. We don't want to see our kids getting locked up of all walks of life. We shouldn't be looking at. We should be looking at putting money into prevention activities rather than building another jail.
Yes.
I was on one of my roles when I was working with courts and attorney generals. Actually, I was the deputy chairperson for the Aboriginal Justice Advisory Council for New South Wales. I served that term for 7 years, and in that 7 years, we made some changes. We were the first Aboriginal justice agency to sign off on an Aboriginal justice agreement in New South Wales. I'm a signatory to that agreement, and a lot of the stuff that's happening now has come out of that agreement. So they've sort of opened the doors for us, I guess, in that role to, bring forth interventions that involve Aboriginal people and are layered by Aboriginal cultural principles, because we overlaid a lot of, legislation, policy around, sentencing of Aboriginal people and incarceration of Aboriginal people and how they're incarcerated. We've got cell watch and things like that. We've got different interventions to curb Aboriginal people being locked up in the first place. But I don't think we're putting enough effort into preventative programs rather than, relying on, penalising people all the time and taking that punitive approach. I get that Australia was built on the back of crime, because this is where they sent the convicts and this is where they ended up.
Those fucking parties have a lot to answer
I
for,
get
don't they?
that.
Yeah.
I get that we have this thing around, that's me bit of property, I'll put a fence around it and I'm going to shoot anyone that comes in. It's that sort of old sort of school thinking.
Yes.
That we want to get away from. We want to move into the future. We want to be involved in our community. We want to be involved in the destiny of Aboriginal people in this country. And if we can do that and assist other people raise their voices as well, of other Indigenous nations as well, I'd really love for that to happen. And I'd really love to form those connections and look at, creating that global network of Indigenous people and take that, that humble and spiritual approach,
Incredibly exciting. And when you look at it objectively, I mean, I'm loving talking to both of you, but all the initiative, you guys are tireless, first of all, in your work, which I have to say that I admire you. I'm not going to use the term congratulate you because that's quite patronizing, right? But you're always on the go. You're always trying to help people. You give the vast majority of your salaries to other people, etc. But when you're just talking there about some of the initiatives you guys have run, I mean, let's look at the channel in terms of how can we exchange ideas with people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get you to give advice for young people, and then we're going to get final thoughts. So let me ask you this. What advice have you got for young people of any jurisdiction, nationality, ethnicity on the planet when they're starting a career? And then we'll get started.
Well, I think the main focus is to believe in yourself, to have confidence and believe in who you are. It doesn't matter what nationality you are, or, there are people of, different relationships of the same sex, and there's lots of different people today that, dye their hair or whatever for image reasons. I think for younger people that we are behind the times, just listen to some of their stories. These are brilliant kids. They're growing up in the era where we had COVID for a few years. They're panda babies. They can't get off the games. We're fortunate that, in our family unit, we have Huey. He's got an Aboriginal tribal name. He's named after my father, who was born on the Clyde River of Bateman's Bay, assuming under a birthing tree. His name was Unamina. So Huey, who is going to be our confidant and help us with this channel, his actually tribal name is Unamina, but we call him Huey for short. So he was lucky enough. We're working with people, the real Aboriginal kids, the ones that come from these communities, raw to the core, not the ones established. There's a car, there's your peas, there's jobs. We want to lift the profile of these Indigenous kids. They see me and Uncle Stan. Look, you can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can have good jobs, you can still be connected to your people. So we want to make sure that we attract the people that believe in themselves, not the ones that have awakenings one day, hang on, I'm Aboriginal and I can do this and I can do that. We're trying to stop that. So just with Huey, he's young. He had he comes from a community where they get sponsored scholarships to go to do Year 12. He was fortunate enough, him and his sister, to go to Canberra Grammar High. They've graduated. Huey graduates soon. And he's waiting to be accepted into a performing arts. He's doing some degree at uni.
Yes, sir.
He's got his own freestyling rapping dance studio, which he joins in with all nationalities. He loves Asian people, especially Vietnam people. And he believes, talking to him, when he dances, he can express himself. He doesn't have to worry about people judging him. He feels free within his own skin and comfort zone. And that's the same with empowering young people of a heritage. To inspire them to be like us. We've been to burnout. We've been there. we're still there.
Yeah.
When you're Aboriginal, you're born into trauma. You're born into resilience regardless.
Yeah.
And we know with these new opportunities, and especially with your channel, we want to inspire our youth, our young people.
It's your channel, not my channel. I am purely a supporting
But
act.
you're
Okay?
inspiring channel to help young people
Yeah.
gain employment, and we want to give them up there. We want them to be culture
Yeah.
practitioners, be proud of your culture, be entrepreneurs. All of the days of cleaners, lower caste jobs. Our kids are too smart.
Yeah.
They got a lot to offer, and that's why we've included Yui to be
Oh,
part
no,
of our team.
I think
and
that
I think we're going to open the doorways
with,
up
with
for
some
many
of the musical stuff that young Yui showed me, I think we might have to spin a separate channel off for him because he might turn out to be another
We may have
YouTube
to, my friend.
megastar.
I think so.
Advice for young people, and I love this man because I respect everything that he says. What advice have you got for young people?
Look, for young people, what nowadays living in this sort of world, is very different from the advice that I got when I was a young bloke. But
Get off your arse.
yeah, mate, or a size 9, size 9 at the backside.
But do you like your feet?
Yeah. So yeah, but we like my sort of advice for young people is sort of when you are growing, when you leave school and stuff like that, when you're coming into adulthood and you're starting to think about jobs, you're starting to think about where you're going to be, because when you're in high school, you don't know what the hell you want. Some people do. Some people have a line that they're very goal orientated, but a lot of people aren't, and it only hits them when they get out of school, and then all of a sudden they're in this big wide world. Is set some goals, look after yourself, make sure you have self-care, surround yourself.
A big issue we're trying to embed into lots of people.
Surround yourself with people that support you and your goals or what you want to achieve. It's no good, if you want to be, a computer technician and you're hanging around with your mates who are getting pissed every day, that's not going to work. So you want to surround
That's
yourself.
the sort of Irish strategy more than anything.
You want to surround yourself, with people that like the same thing. Because there's an old saying, you'll never work a day in your life if you're doing what you love and you love what you're doing.
And that's what we're doing now.
No, I think you guys do. So let me ask you this then. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts?
Well, our final thoughts is for everybody that's looking and viewing the interview today, is we want to get as many people to like our interview so we can create a space for our up-and-coming youth to be able to, make sure we endorse them. And as Stan just said, we want to put the drive and the passion behind our future generation. Everything we do today is for my future generation, for our grandkids' future, because we're on many big different committees and we're on different programs. We're on multiple projects, and all of those projects are all about Aboriginal healing, spiritualism, and saving the planet. So when we pick people like Yui, he's going to be a megastar. He is so embraced with K-pop, Asian dancing, and he was telling me that he's tick a box. What would you like to be, Yui? You got to have some goals. He said, I'd like to be a dancer that's got a couple of different nationalities from around the world. So instead of just one Asian pop group, he wants to incorporate, because he's got a lot of friends that do this freestyle dancing. So the freestyle dancing for them is really about emotional, and it's about inward spirituality for Yui, expression themselves. They mightn't be able to talk about their problems, but you can go in the room and have a dance. So it's their way about self-care, their new techniques, how we look after ourselves. Yeah. So for us, we'd like everyone that, we're multi-skilled with many different skills. We've got multi skills. We're known on the New South Wales coast. I know we don't look that old. But, we've been there for 40 plus years, and it's exactly what you
Speak for
said.
yourself there.
When you go to burnout, this is not bad burnout for us. It's good because we love doing what we're doing.
Let's let him have the final word. What do you
Thank
reckon,
you,
Big Lad?
everyone.
What would you like to finish off on?
Yeah.
He's a walking commercial, this guy, by the
Look,
way,
mate, I
isn't
just
he?
want to say thanks. The second most famous John Walters in the world.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Presenting this opportunity to us to have a yarn to you and really sort of give our new channel a plug.
Yes.
I really do appreciate that, mate. And, I think hopefully, if we get enough subscriptions,
subscribers.
enough likes, then we'll be able to help, our communities in more pragmatic and more practical ways, and share what we do with other Indigenous communities so that they can actually come up as well. So we want to look at, all the different cultures all around the world, and if they've got similar issues to us in communities, we want to assist as well with what worked for us may work for them. And they just need to tailor things to them, to their way.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Because I tell you, circle sentencing is a big thing. That was based on a model from Canada. So the native Canadian people had this process over there. We had it here. We had always had yarning circles here and circles that dealt with law, men's, women's business, but we never ever formalised that process. So we brought that in and overlaid it over policy and procedure so that Aboriginal people could get involved and open that door, and it dropped the crime rate by 16% in its first, 6 months of operation. And if that can work in our Indigenous community, it can work in other Indigenous communities that have similar issues to us, depending on where they are.
Well, there's a couple of
And their
great
own
things there that I
circumstance.
will conclude with. I mean, first of all, you're going to be a great example to your young people. You get the three of us and we're probably adding up to about, 150 to 160 or 170 all up. Now, you guys are going to be a great example to people, not just in Australia, but all over the world in terms of what's achievable. If I look at the journey I've been on this time last year, Tyrone and Sandy said to me, "Big man, you should be on YouTube because you're like Rain Man." And I said to them, "If you think I'm going to be on YouTube, you need to go and have a fucking good look at yourself." Right? But look at the journey we've had in the last 12 months.
That's true.
I like the idea of building out good. It's all about content. It's all about good quality content. Let's get ourselves rocking and rolling, and let's make sure that we can showcase what you guys are about in 2026. Now, I'm going to finish off. I'm going to wish everybody a Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We've had a great year on inspiring careers. And when I look at these two wonderful people, I have to say to you that sometimes in life, it's wonderful to see quality. And these guys are certainly quality people. So have a nice Christmas and we shall talk to you in the new year.